India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh. During his visit, the Prime Minister inaugurated and laid the foundation stone of projects worth more than 34,000 crore rupees. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also inaugurated and laid the foundation stone of 15 airport projects across the country, which are worth more than 9,800 crore rupees. Further, the Prime Minister launched projects worth over 19,000 crore rupees to strengthen rail and road infrastructure across the state. He also flagged off MEMU train service between Ghazipur City, Tarighat, Dildar Nagar Junction. Earlier today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also visited an exhibition which is related to the development projects before attending the program. Prime Minister also hailed government's efforts in development of the state. He accused the previous governments of damaging the image of Uttar Pradesh.
भ्रष्टाचार में डूबी परिवारवादी सरकारों में इतने बड़े पैमाने पर विकास कार्य असंभव था। पिछली सरकारों में आजमगढ़ और पूर्वांचल ने पिछड़ेपन की तकलीफ ही नहीं उठाई, बल्कि इस दौर में यहां की छवि खराब करने में भी कोई कमी नहीं छोड़ी गई। जिस तरह पहले की सरकारों में यहां आतंक को, बाहुबल को संरक्षण दिया गया, वो पूरे देश ने देखा है। इस परिस्थिति को बदलने के लिए यहां के युवाओं को नए अवसर देने के लिए भी डबल इंजन सरकार लगातार काम कर रही है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi today dedicated the expanded world-class integrated Terminal 1 of Delhi Airport to the nation. Delhi Airport now stands among elite global hubs, boasting a 100 million passengers per annum capacity. The expansion work was carried out as per the Master Plan 2016 at Delhi Airport, as it witnessed a massive surge at the air traffic movements and passengers' numbers also exceeding the projections. Now, in a major boost to women empowerment in Chhattisgarh, Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched the Mahatari Vandana Yojana and disbursed the first installment under the scheme. Now, the scheme has been launched in Chhattisgarh to provide financial assistance of 1,000 rupees per month to eligible married women of the state as monthly direct benefit transfer or DBT. Widows divorced will also be eligible for the scheme.
महतारी वंदन योजना के तहत छत्तीसगढ़ की 70 लाख से ज्यादा माता बहनों को हर महीने 1,000 रुपया देने का वायदा किया गया था। बीजेपी सरकार ने अपना वादा पूरा किया है। आज महतारी वंदन योजना के तहत 655 करोड़ रुपए की पहली किस्त जारी की गई है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi also hailed the signing of agreement between India and EFTA bloc countries as a watershed moment in the bilateral relationship between India and EFTA bloc nations. Prime Minister further said that India will extend all possible support and also facilitate industry and business not only to achieve the committed target but also to make it the third largest economy very sooner. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal met with the delegates from European Free Trade Association nations and the business community alongside India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. India signed the India-EFTA Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement today, reflecting a novel strategy for enhancing international economic collaboration. Minister also hailed the accord as both ambitious and fair-minded, benefiting both India and its European counterparts.
It's an ambitious agreement. It integrates economies and enhances flow of trade and investments. It also focuses on sustainable growth, integrates India with many new global value chains, and promises huge business opportunities and employment opportunities to the people of the 5 countries.
Today, Switzerland, together with the other EFTA states and India, signs a Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement, GPA. Again, the first of its kind concluded by India and a European partner. It fills me with great pride that we have come so far together. This step proves that we have taken our ambition and commitment to conclude a treaty seriously, and that we have constantly expanded and deepened our friendship.
I strongly believe that this agreement, which is so much more than an agreement, it is a partnership, will bring a lot of opportunities for all our countries. Norwegian companies, our Sovereignty Fund and our Climate Fund have already invested $25 billion in India. And this will continue to grow now as we move ahead together as friends and partners.
And now an update on the Israel-Gaza conflict. Efforts to secure a deal on a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza are ongoing. Israel is now hoping for a truce during the holy month of Ramadan. Israel and Hamas blamed each other, however, for the lack of agreement after the talks mediated by Qatar and Egypt about a 40-day ceasefire amid fears of violence could escalate during the Muslim fasting month.
Hamas has been stealing humanitarian aid and stockpiling equipment and food for Ramadan for Hamas terrorist leaders instead of the Gazan civilians in need. By refusing to release our hostages, Hamas is preventing a humanitarian ceasefire and increasing the suffering of the civilians in Gaza. Hamas wants only one thing: to escalate the Ramadan. In coordination with our partners in the United States and CENTCOM, the Central Command, we are coordinating a temporary floating pier to get more humanitarian aid to Gaza.
US President Joe Biden has said it was looking tough for a ceasefire agreement in Gaza by the start of Ramadan.
Will there be a ceasefire by Ramadan? It's looking tough, but are you concerned about violence?
And now in latest from the conflict, IDF troops eliminated 13 terrorists and struck a terrorist cell and an underground tunnel route in the central Gaza. Additionally, in Hamas, IDF troops located AK-47s, grenades and ammunition. In Khan Yunis, IDF troops eliminated 17 terrorists during a series of strikes. More aid was parachuted into Gaza on Sunday as nations are now working on setting up a new maritime corridor to boost the supplies for the enclave. Now, this comes as a Spanish-owned NGO ship with aid is expected to leave on Sunday from Cyprus for Gaza as part of an international effort to launch a maritime corridor. Cyprus's president said that vessel is expected to leave in the next 24 hours. The government is also offering a process for screening cargoes that will also include Israel officials so that security checks can be avoided. The Open Arms, a salvage vessel, was stocked with 200 tons of food sourced by charity World Central Kitchen and mostly funded by the United Arab Emirates. Meanwhile, after providing humanitarian aids via airdrops, the US has dispatched a ship to send humanitarian aid into Gaza by sea. As per an official statement on Sunday, US Army vessel General Frank S. Besson departed Joint Base Langley Eustis en route to the eastern Mediterranean to provide humanitarian aid to Gaza. The vessel also contains equipments for the establishment of a temporary pier for the delivery of vital humanitarian supplies. Meanwhile, tension is mounting across Israel and the Palestinian territories ahead of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan that is expected to begin over the coming days. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is holding a number of meetings with senior officials on Sunday amid fear of a wider regional spillover from the war in Gaza. DD India's Sarah Coates reports from Jerusalem. Take a look.
Well, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is certainly expected to discuss a number of security issues ahead of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, which could begin in just a number of hours' time. Certainly a lot of concern around this flashpoint area right here in Jerusalem. A lot of uncertainty as to what can happen over the next month, with fears that this flashpoint area could really explode. What we've been hearing over the last few days is the military wing of Hamas calling for people to march on the Al-Aqsa Mosque that you can just see behind me. This is the third holiest site in Islam and is often a flashpoint for extreme violence. This year, we do understand, according to the Israeli Security Cabinet, there will not be any extra measures put on Muslim worshippers who will really pour into that square, that plaza that you can see just behind me. This will, though, be reassessed on a week-by-week basis. We did hear from Netanyahu. He said that the sanctity of the holiday must be preserved, really pushing back against calls by his far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir to put some extremely harsh restrictions on Muslim prayer at this mosque during the holy month, saying that anyone under the age of 60 should not be allowed in. But as I mentioned, certainly a lot of tension here in the old city. What we've been seeing over these past few days is a real bolstering of security forces, many very, very heavily armed border guards patrolling the area, also setting up a number of barriers. So certainly unclear as to what we can expect over the next few days, but we will certainly be monitoring this situation on the ground very closely. Sarah Coates in Jerusalem reporting for DD India.
Now, US, UK and France downed dozens of drones in the Red Sea area overnight after Yemen's Houthis targeted bulk carrier and US warships in the region. The Houthis have been attacking ships in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden since November. US Central Command said that US military and coalition forces had downed at least 28 uncrewed aerial vehicles over the Red Sea in the early hours of Saturday. A French warship and fighter jets also shot down 4 combat drones that were advancing towards naval vessels. In latest from Russia-Ukraine conflict, a drone that was launched by Ukraine fell and caught fire at an oil depot in Russia's Kursk region bordering Ukraine. Fire brigades and emergency services are working at the scene right now. Ukraine's air defense systems destroyed 35 of 39 attack drones Russia launched overnight. Meanwhile, Russian air defenses downed a Ukrainian MiG-29 fighter jet over the Donetsk region. In retaliation, Russia launched 4 S-300 anti-aircraft guided missiles. We are moving for a short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. Watershed moment for India as European Free Trade Agreement signed after years of negotiations. India presents a detailed model on behalf of G4 nations for the reform of United Nations Security Council. Mass kidnapping unfolds in Nigeria as at least 15 students were kidnapped on Saturday.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Deepika. Now, as we were speaking, in a historic first, India has signed trade agreement with EFTA nations, including Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Switzerland. Agreement to pay way for investment of $100 billion in India over the next 15 years is also on the cards. Our next report tells you all about the deal. Take a look.
India and the four-nation European Free Trade Association on Sunday signed a trade deal in India's national capital New Delhi in the presence of the country's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal and ministers of EFTA countries. Addressing the event, Minister Goyal stated that the trade agreement symbolizes our shared commitment to open, fair and equitable trade.
The trade agreement symbolizes our shared commitment to open, fair, equitable trade as well as generating growth and employment for the youth. In the last 10 years, India's economy has taken a quantum leap, moving from being the world's 11th largest economy to the 5th largest. Through wide-ranging reforms, we have enhanced the ease of doing business that has helped our nation touch new heights in business, manufacturing and exports. India will extend all possible support to EFTA countries and facilitate industry and businesses.
The European Free Trade Association is the intergovernmental organization of Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Switzerland. EFTA countries are not part of the European Union. India's exports to EFTA countries during 2022-2023 stood at $1.92 billion. Imports aggregated at $16.74 billion during the same period. EFTA has 29 free trade agreements with 40 partner countries including Canada, Chile, China, Mexico and Korea. Now let's take a look at some of the highlights of India-EFTA deal. India and EFTA have been negotiating the pact since 2008. Agreement has 14 chapters including trade in goods, rules of origin, intellectual property rights, trade in services, investment promotion and cooperation, government procurement, technical barriers to trade and trade facilitation. The agreement, along with greater market access, also has commitment for investment of $100 billion in India over the next 15 years to generate 1 million jobs. Countries like Switzerland have eliminated import duties on industrial goods while maintaining them on agricultural products. Deal could see a reduction of tariffs on gold, a significant demand from the trading bloc, particularly Switzerland. After the India-EFTA deal, India could see higher imports of machinery, pharmaceuticals, medical instruments and machinery, as there would be a sharp reduction in Indian tariffs. India is also looking at the EFTA deal to help diversify imports away from China. India currently depends on China for key medical imports. Free trade agreements play a key role for a fast-growing large economy like India. Along with other advantages, FTAs allow exporters access to international market at low custom duties. India has been discussing free trade agreements with several partners, both bilateral and regional. India-UK FTA negotiations are said to be at an advanced stage. India so far has inked 13 free trade agreements with its partners, the most recent ones with Mauritius, UAE and Australia.
And now to get you an in-depth analysis, I am joined by Professor Abhijit Das, who's been the former head of WTO Centre, IIFT, and international trade expert as well. Good evening, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us here on DD India News Hour. Now, after more than a decade and 21 roundtable meetings, this EFTA has been made possible. How important this becomes when we talk about from a common man's point of view for the benefit of our viewers, Professor?
Good afternoon, Deepika, and first and foremost, thank you for having me on your program. This agreement, which was signed today, is certainly a watershed in India's FTA engagements. India has been negotiating a free trade deal with European Union since 2007 and with EFTA since 2008. So in a manner of speaking, this certainly is a very big step in India's engagement with the Western world. While India had signed an FTA with Australia last year, it's important to note that India does not, till today, did not have an FTA with the countries in the Western Hemisphere. So this certainly is an important step. And if we look at the contents of the free trade agreement, one thing which really stands out and which is not present in India's earlier FTAs is some sort of a commitment. It's not a binding commitment, but certainly an important commitment whereby EFTA countries shall aim to increase FDI into India by $100 billion over the next 15 years. Of course, India would have to ensure a favorable climate for foreign investment from EFTA to come in. So to my mind, that is perhaps the most important aspect of this free trade agreement. And if the investment which has been committed under the FTA does fructify, that will have very important implications for creation of jobs and hence for common man in the coming few years.
And also when we talk about the investment, specifically this $100 billion investment that you're talking about, we have to provide favorable conditions to those countries also. But having given the fact that this is already done on the papers, how are we looking at when we talk about a boost to employment opportunities and we talk about a boost to Make in India initiative as well, Professor Das?
Deepika, the boost in domestic employment and Make in India will really come through once the investment flows in. No doubt there is a commitment, but we will have to see how this commitment gets fructified in reality. And that is when this agreement will really get tested. I am hopeful that since the agreement has been signed in good faith, the EFTA countries will certainly stick to their part of the deal. And if they are able to stick to their part of the deal, then definitely foreign investment coming into India would be a very welcome news for the Indian industry, for employment, and also for Make in India. Of course, it will also depend on what conditions can India impose on the FDI which comes in terms of performance requirements. So we will have to wait and see, but at this juncture, we should be optimistic that this agreement will open the doors for more foreign investment to come in.
Professor Das, when we talk about optimism, when we talk about agreement, we have to look at the bilateral relations as well, which the current government have developed very nicely across different length and breadths with different countries. We've seen that be it during the time of war, be it during the time of COVID-19 pandemic, or be it during the time of trade benefits. How are you looking at this government's initiative towards developing bonds and towards strengthening the bilateral ties that are, giving an ROI in such a form?
Certainly, the present government's attempts at strengthening bilateral ties through deepening trade relationship is a few notches higher than what had happened in the past. Let's recall that during 2003 to 2010 or so, India did ink quite a few trade agreements. These were with Singapore, ASEAN, Japan, South Korea, Malaysia. But now what we are seeing over the past 2-3 years, the intention is to also get into trade deals with more advanced economies. That could pose challenges as well as that could give huge opportunities for the Indian industry and Indian exporters. But at the end of the day, India would be able to take advantage of these opportunities if we are able to become more price competitive. And we are already seeing many initiatives being taken by the government to make Indian exports more price competitive. And of course, that also brings me to the other area of services. While the fine print on services in India, EFTA, FTA remains to be seen, I can be hopeful that we would get some market access for our service providers in the EFTA countries. One issue in the goods sector that needs to be highlighted is gold imports, which is substantially coming into India from Switzerland. And again, we will have to see what the fine print really is on gold. But if we go by the precedent in India, UAE, where India allowed UAE to export gold to India at slightly more favorable terms, we might see similar provisions in EFTA, and that would be in our own domestic interest.
13 FTAs are already in place, and now this EFTA. We are also willing to become the third largest economy. How much of a boost will it provide when we talk about becoming A, a developed country, B, the third largest economy as well, Professor Das?
Signing FTAs does give India a large global market for its exports of goods and services. There's absolutely no denying that fact. But accompanied with that opportunity also comes challenges, particularly in areas which are going to be burgeoned, which are going to be buoyant in the future, such as digital trade, such as green products, green technologies. If we look at the template in many of the past FTAs of developed countries, there were provisions which could have tied the hands of FTA partner countries from giving a boost to the domestic producers. Luckily, the EFTA agreement with India, I have had a very quick look, and I couldn't find too many provisions which might, in a way, constrain India from giving support to domestic producers in these two important sectors, that is digital and green products, green technologies. So to cut a long story short, if we are price competitive, we will be able to tap into the large export market. That will definitely give a big boost to our expanding GDP and our ambitions of becoming a $10 trillion economy in the near future. But as I said, we also have to be cognizant of constraints which the FTA might impose on our domestic producers.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Das, for joining us and bringing a rounded perspective on the EFTA deal that has been signed today. Thank you. Moving on in DD India News Hour. Well, India has presented a detailed model on behalf of the G4 nations for the reform of the United Nations Security Council. Ambassador Ruchira Kamboj presented the G4 model on behalf of Brazil, Germany, Japan and India, aiming to initiate debate, dialogue and ultimately negotiations. These proposals received strong support from a wide range of UN members as well. Here's a report.
India has proposed a detailed model representing the G4 nations for Security Council reform. It suggests adding new permanent members elected by the General Assembly and shows flexibility on the veto issue. India's permanent representative to the UN, Ambassador Ruchira Kamboj, emphasized the importance of the UN's 88th anniversary next year as a milestone to make tangible progress on the long-pending issues of Security Council reform. Participating in the intergovernmental negotiation, she represented the G4 model on behalf of Brazil, Germany, Japan and India, sparking a strong support from a wide range of UN members.
We join the majority of member states in calling for a reformed Security Council that is more representative of the UN membership, with members elected through a charter-based democratic process. Under the model, we advocate that any member, large or small, is welcome to be a candidate for a new permanent seat on a reformed council to be elected in a General Assembly election on the basis of its own merit and capacity to assume responsibility for maintaining international peace and security.
Kamboj highlighted that the geopolitical landscape has significantly evolved since the Security Council's establishment in 1945. She emphasized the need for change in line with current realities during her presentation of the comprehensive G4 model to UN member states.
The G4 position on the issue of the veto, colleagues, is very well known. While the new permanent members would, as a principle, have the same responsibilities and obligations as current permanent members, they shall not exercise the veto until a decision on the matter has been taken during a review. Since the issue of the veto is important, it would be desirable to sort it out with other critical topics. And at the same time, we should not allow the veto issue to have a veto over the process of the Council reform itself. Our proposal, I would also add, is also a gesture of showing flexibility on the issue for a constructive negotiation.
The G4 model suggests expanding the Security Council's membership from 15 to 25-26 with the addition of 5 permanent and 4 or 5 non-permanent members. Of the 6 new permanent members, 2 each are proposed to be from African states and Asia-Pacific states, 1 from Latin America and Caribbean states, and 1 from Western European and other states. Syed Afsarul Hassan reporting for DD India.
We are moving for a short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. President Biden and former President Donald Trump campaigns present starkly different visions for the US during their campaign. And Portuguese head to polls on Sunday.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Deepika. Well, as the poll fever grips the United States, former US President Donald Trump and US President Joe Biden on Saturday traded salvos in Georgia's face-off. Trump hit out at Biden saying he's a threat to democracy, while Biden came out fighting on campaign trail in Georgia. DD India's Mihir Maikuri reports.
Election fever is gripping the United States as the nation gears up for one of the most consequential presidential elections in its history. In battleground state of Georgia, President Biden and former President Donald Trump presented starkly different visions for the United States on Saturday night as they campaigned within 70 miles of each other. In a tit-for-tat move, the Republican frontrunner, Donald Trump, criticized President Biden during a rally in Georgia, labeling him as a threat to democracy.
He's a threat to democracy, weaponized government, weaponized the FBI, weaponized the DOJ. He's a threat to democracy for other reasons also. Number one, he's grossly incompetent. Joe Biden gave the most divisive, partisan, radical, and extreme speech ever delivered by a president in that chamber, not even close.
Meanwhile, Biden hammered Trump for cozying up to authoritarian leaders, including Russian President Vladimir Putin.
It can tell you a lot about a person who he keeps company with. And yesterday he was hosting at his club Viktor Orban, who says he doesn't think democracy works. Call him a fantastic leader. He said the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un wrote him a beautiful letter. He bragged about calling Xi Jinping a king. He called Putin and he said, do whatever the hell you want to our allies. I'm not making these quotes up. When he says he wants to be a dictator, I believe him.
Trump's robust campaigning for the November polls has rekindled fervor among his supporters, heightening expectations of his potential return to the White House.
We're hoping that it goes for favor for Trump. We think at this point he's going to get it. I mean, that's what we want. We're all go Trump.
I'm excited about him securing the presidency for 2024. He's the best person for the job. The country was in much better position when he was president.
Trump is expected to secure his party's nomination on Tuesday as Georgia, Hawaii, Mississippi and Washington states hold nominating contests. On the other hand, President Biden continues to face backlash among Democrats for his staunch support of Israel in its conflict against Hamas in Gaza, which could impact the vote in Georgia. All in all, Georgia provided a fitting backdrop for the showdown between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. This face-off marked the end of a week following the Super Tuesday primary results, where Trump solidified his position as the presumptive Republican nominee. Also, Biden's State of the Union speech, too, made a sweeping case for his second term. Mihir Maikuri, DD, India.
Portuguese voters headed to the polls on Sunday, faced with the choice between switching to a centre-right government for maintaining or the centre-left in power, although neither of the options seems to have a clear pathway to a full majority. The far-right party has been growing in clout and could play a role in post-election talks. Polling stations opened at 8 a.m. local time and will be closed by 7 p.m. in mainland Portugal. Results are expected around midnight. The issues dominating the campaign in Western Europe's poorest countries include a crippling housing crisis, low wages, sagging healthcare and corruption, seen by many as an endemic to the mainstream parties. French President Emmanuel Macron's political party Renaissance launched its campaign for European Parliament elections in the northern city of Lille as it trails behind the far-right party. The French president has picked Valérie Hayer as the 37-year-old head of the renewed group in the European Parliament to lead his camp in the June 9th polls. Prime Minister Gabriel Attal, who took office after a reshuffle last January, has portrayed Le Pen's Reassemblement National Party as beholden to Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to a survey, Renaissance is polling second at 20% of voting intentions, while the Socialist Party is at 9 to 10% and the right wing, the Republicans, are tied at 8%. In Nigeria, nearly 30 out of 300 school children who were kidnapped last week have escaped, according to state officials. Now, it is not clear as yet which militant group is behind the kidnapping, but Nigerian authorities say they are intensifying search operations to rescue the rest of the kidnapped children. DD India's correspondent Nabil Ahmed Rufai has more.
The kidnapping of about 300 school children in northern Nigeria is the largest mass abduction in the country in 3 years. It has devastated the West African country, which has been striving to stop such crimes, bringing back the memory of the mass abduction of nearly 300 schoolgirls in Chibok by the militant group Boko Haram 10 years ago. Eyewitnesses say the latest incident happened on Thursday when gunmen on motorcycles rode through schools and abducted dozens of students. According to school teachers and parents, the kidnapped children are between the ages of 8 and 15. One pupil was shot by the gunmen and later died while receiving treatment in a hospital. Nigerian authorities say they have deployed the police to form search parties with local residents to try and rescue the kidnapped children. The kidnapping has ignited fears among parents in northern Nigeria who are reluctant to allow their children to go to school due to the safety concerns. No group has claimed responsibility for the abduction as yet, but it is suspected that a breakaway group from Boko Haram, known as Ansaru, may be behind the abduction. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, reporting in Accra, Ghana, for DD India.
And now in DD India News Hour, let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. NATO flag will be raised at the Swedish Armed Forces headquarters in Stockholm on Monday. Sweden joined NATO in Washington on Thursday. Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson handed over the final documentation to the US government. British police said a man was arrested after a car crashed into the gates of Buckingham Palace in central London on Sunday. Grainy images on social media showed a car at the front gate of the palace. Buckingham Palace said no member of the royal family was resident at the time of the incident and repairs to the gates were underway. China concluded its annual session of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference on Sunday. Delegates voted in favor of approving the implementation of suggestions from CPPCC chairman. China's annual parliament session, the National People's Congress, will close on Monday. After Pope's visit in 2021, Iraq builds a church and a Roman theatre near the ancient city of Ur, traditionally believed to be the birthplace of Abraham, in efforts to attract more number of tourists. While India has close and long-standing relations with Mauritius, an island nation in the Western Indian Ocean, anchored in shared history, demography and culture. The development partnerships have been the foundation pillars of ties between the two nations as well.
India's President Draupadi Murmu will embark on a visit to Mauritius from 11th to 13th March 2024 to attend the National Day celebrations of Mauritius on 12th of March as the chief guest. The invitation to India's president for National Day celebrations of Mauritius shows India's close ties with Mauritius. The development partnerships have been the foundation pillars of the partnerships between the two nations. Recently, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister of Mauritius, Pravin Jugnauth, had jointly inaugurated the new airstrip and St. James Jetty, along with 6 community development projects at the Agalega Island in Mauritius via video conferencing. People in Mauritius are happy with these projects.
India has helped us with grants, with Metro Express, hospitals. India has helped us enormously in building up the infrastructure in Agalega.
The inauguration of these projects is significant as it follows the recent launch of UPI and RuPay card services in Mauritius on 12th of February 2024. The inauguration of these projects is a testimony to the robust and decades-old development partnership between India and Mauritius.
India's Union Minister of Minority Affairs and Women and Child Development, Smriti Irani, virtually laid the foundation stone for 38 projects approved under Buddhist Development Plan under the aegis of Pradhan Mantri Jan Vikas Karyakram in Indian states of Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim and the Union Territory of Ladakh.
हमारे वरिष्ठ मंत्री अरुणाचल प्रदेश से आलो लिबांग जी ने विशेष रूप से कहा कि अरुणाचल प्रदेश में अभी भी कुछ मॉनेस्ट्रीज के इर्द गिर्द इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के संदर्भ में वो प्रपोजल भेजना चाहते हैं। मैं निश्चित रूप से उन प्रपोजल्स का स्वागत करूंगी और आश्वस्त करती हूं कि प्रधानमंत्री जी ने विकास और विरासत का जो समन्वय हमसे अपेक्षित किया है, हम वो विशेष रूप से बुद्धिस्ट डेवलपमेंट प्लान के अंतर्गत उसे स्थापित करेंगे।
In a big news for India's cheetah mission, 5-year-old female cheetah Gamini has given birth to 5 cubs on Sunday. This takes the tally of the Indian-born cubs to number 13 now. India's Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav announced on social media platform X and also congratulated the team of forest officers, vets and field staff for ensuring a stress-free environment for the cheetahs. The total number of cheetahs, including cubs in Kuno National Park, has now rose to 26. And now in the India News Hour, let's quickly take a look at other stories making news around the country. Chief of Army Staff General Manoj Pandey visited Bengal Engineer Group and Centre in Roorkee. Chief of Army Staff paid homage to the brave hearts in a solemn wreath-laying ceremony at the War Memorial and also interacted with the troops and complimented them for maintaining high standards of training. Ahead of the general election, renowned sand artist Sudarshan Patnaik created sand art to raise awareness among first-time voters at Puri Sea Beach in eastern state of Odisha, reminding young voters of civic duty and democracy's strength. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and Union Minister Piyush Goyal on Sunday attended Viksit Bharat Ambassador Artist Workshop organized by National Gallery of Modern Arts in collaboration with Lalit Kala Academy in New Delhi. In a bid to promote the idea of a developed nation through artistic expression, the Artist Workshop was organized in which a host of artists from schools and institutions took part across the country. India's Women and Child Development Minister Smriti Irani flagged off the NBT All-Women Bike Rally in New Delhi on Sunday. The minister expressed happiness that women, irrespective of age and class, have participated in this bike rally that shows their determination. We are moving for a short break in DD India News Hour, but still to come. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Make in India initiative surges ahead as mobile sector transitions from being 78% import dependent in 2014 to 97% self-sufficient currently. World cinema is set to witness a glamorous night at the 96th Academy Awards. India's Satvik and Chirag duo sails into men's doubles final of the French Open. Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Deepika. Well, over the last 10 years, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Make in India initiative has surged ahead across India, particularly evident in India's mobile phone production, marking an unparalleled triumph in the manufacturing sector. The sector has also transitioned from being 78% import dependent in 2014 to 97% self-sufficient currently, which is as per the latest industry body India Cellular and Electronics Association figures. Now, mobile phone production has also surged from 18,900 crore rupees in 2014 and 15 to an estimated 4,10,000 crore rupees in financial year 2024, registering an increase of almost 2,000%. As per ICEA, India produced 2.45 billion units of mobile phones during this 10-year period against a goal of 2.5 billion units. In addition to this, 2024-2015 mobile phone exports from India amounted to only 1,556 crore rupees. So the industry anticipates closing the financial year 2024 with an estimated export value of 1,20,000 crore rupees. This exponential growth in production, exports and self-sufficiency is the result of conducive policy and environment and a close working relationship between the industry and key government ministries as well. A memorandum of understanding between the University of Delhi and Kyungpook National University, Korea, to promote Korean language education at both the universities was signed in New Delhi. Now, Kyungpook National University will provide funds to the University of Delhi for program development and operational expenses such as renovation of language laboratory and infrastructure. Additionally, they have also appointed a Korean language instructor and committed to offer scholarships for 10 students from the Department of East Asian Studies annually. Well, this is the first step towards the mutually beneficial cooperation between the two universities in the spirit of friendship. Egypt's annual urban consumer price inflation has increased to 35.7% in February, which is a massive jump of over 6% from the month of January. The primary factor driving this wave of inflation is the sharp and concerning rise in the costs of food and beverages. The increase in inflation comes well before a surge which is expected to result from last week's devaluation of the currency. The central bank on Wednesday allowed the Egyptian pound to fall to about 50 to the dollar from 30.85, where it had been fixed for the past 12 months. And in DD India News Hour, let's quickly get you all the sporting action. Top seeds and former champions Satvik Siraj, Ranki Reddy and Chirag Shetty reached their third consecutive final of 2024 and third final at the French Open after a dominating victory over reigning world champions Kang Min-hyuk and Seo Swang-chi of Korea by 21-13 and 21-16 in men's doubles semi-finals in Paris. India's top duo will face Chinese Taipei's Li Jinghua and Kyungpol Swan in the finals on Sunday. Earlier, Lakshya Sen was defeated in his men's singles semi-final category against Silence Kunlavut with Sidon. On to soccer, Liverpool will be up against Manchester City at Anfield on Sunday in the season-defining game of the Premier League. Jurgen Klopp's injury-hit side is leading the table but are just 1 point ahead of Man City after 27 games. Pep Guardiola's City are surging, but there's an air of destiny about Liverpool in Klopp's final few months in charge before he steps down. Klopp and Guardiola have had so many great tactical battles over the years, and if this is to be their last one, surely they will go all out to find any way that they can get an advantage with their lineups. Liverpool have Mohamed Salah available again after he returned from a hamstring injury in midweek. Whereas Manchester City will check on the fitness of Jeremy Doku and Matthias Nunes, the latter suffering from a dislocated finger in their midweek victory. To discuss more on this, I'm joined by DD India sports correspondent Narayan Singh. Narayan, when we talk about Liverpool versus Manchester City and the going of Jurgen Klopp as well, his few final days, what do you think? Can Liverpool make it tonight?
Definitely a very little to separate between the two teams, considering the kind of football they have displayed throughout this season. And if you talk about Man City, they have dominated this decade of the English football. In the past 12 years, they have won 7 titles, and they also won 3 back-to-back titles. But playing a game at Anfield and considering the form of Liverpool, and right now both the teams are separated by just 1 point in the English Premier League top 5, and Arsenal is at the top. They have played 1 more match. But the thing is that there is very little to separate between the two teams. But if you take a look, the head-to-head records between the two teams at Anfield, in the last 20 matches, Liverpool has lost only 1 match against the Premier League side Man City. If you take a look at the past 30 matches between the two sides, only an away team has won twice. So in that sense, it will be difficult for Man City to win at Anfield, but we know that the kind of coach Pep Guardiola is and what kind of things he has done in the English Premier League and before that also in his coaching career. So in that sense, it's going to be an intense match, a season-defining match of this season, and whosoever wins this match definitely will have an upper hand in the English Premier League top flight.
Indeed, Narayan, and also fans will also play a key role there at Anfield for the Reds. Thank you so much for joining us and bringing us a rounded perspective ahead of tonight's super clash between Liverpool and Manchester City. Moving on to cricket, India will lock horns with Australia in Def T20 Cricket World Cup match on Sunday in Sharjah. Earlier, the match between India and Pakistan was called off due to persistent rain. Both the teams got 1 point each from that. Now, 6 countries, which includes India, Australia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, South Africa and Sri Lanka, are competing in the tournament. The final will be played on the 12th of March.
हम भी बहुत दिनों से इसकी प्लानिंग में थे और इंतजार कर रहे थे कि भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच एक काफ़ी दोस्ताना माहौल में एक रोमांचक मुकाबला हो, ताकि साहब वही खिलाड़ियों में एवं लोगों में भी बहुत साथ एक अच्छा मैच देखने के लिए सभी लोग इंतजार कर रहे थे। तो दोनों टीमों के बीच एक अच्छा मैच होता। इस मैच को लेकर हम बहुत ही ज़्यादा उत्साहित थे एवं हमने सोचा था कि आज का जो मैच है काफ़ी दोस्ताना एवं रोमांचक होगा, लेकिन बारिश के शुरू होने के बाद यह संभव भी नहीं हो पाया।
Moving on, preparations have ramped up on the Oscars red carpet as crews look to prepare for Hollywood's biggest night on Sunday at the Dolby Theatre in Los Angeles. The Academy Awards crews have started putting together the big stage since Wednesday. The gala event will begin at 4 a.m. according to the Indian Standard Time, and the show will be hosted by Jimmy Kimmel. Now, this year's carpet theme is focused on elegance and honoring the tradition of the Academy Awards with the return of the red carpet after last year's white carpet experiment. Director Christopher Nolan's global blockbuster Oppenheimer is dominating the nominations, earning an impressive 13 nods. Indian fans will be keenly watching the documentary feature film category, in which the Canadian documentary To Kill a Tiger, directed by India-born Canadian filmmaker Nisha Pahuja, has been nominated. Critics are expecting an explosive night for Oppenheimer at this year's annual Academy Awards. The story of the atomic bomb has been hoovering up wins this awards season and is widely tipped to win the Best Picture. TD India's William Denslow is in New York with a preview of what we can expect at the Oscars.
In the battle at the box office between Barbie and Oppenheimer, it was Barbie that came out on top. Greta Gerwig's film became the most successful ever to be directed by a woman, pulling in around $1.4 billion at the box office. But the biggest blasts on Oscar night are expected to be generated by Oppenheimer. It's been nominated 13 times and is widely tipped to win categories including Best Picture, Best Director, that would be Christopher Nolan, and Best Actor, that would be Cillian Murphy. Cillian Murphy, though, does face some competition. Critics say the biggest rival for that category likely to be Paul Giamatti for his portrayal of a boarding school teacher in the film The Holdovers. When it comes to Best Supporting Actor, many believe that'll likely be Robert Downey Jr. for his efforts in Oppenheimer. He does face competition, though, from Ryan Gosling after he played Ken in Barbie. Even if Gosling doesn't win, don't be too disappointed though, Barbie fans. He is expected to perform this smash hit from the film, I'm Just Ken, live on Oscar night here in the US. When it comes to Best Actress, well, many critics believe that will likely be between Lily Gladstone for her performance in Killers of the Flower Moon or Emma Stone for her performance in Poor Things. When it comes to who will be looking after and will be hosting Oscar night, that will fall to the late-night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel. Analysts say the Oscars are in safe hands. This is the 4th time that he'll be hosting. William Denslow in New York reporting for DD India.
And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Twitter along with Instagram. We will be back as news breaks here on DD India. I am Deepika Mehto, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.